Hi guys, my name is Omar for Awesome SVGs, and today I'll show you how to assemble this braided card I call Burst. First thing is first, let's get your file ready. Okay, so open up a new project in Design Space and then click on Upload. Go to Upload Images, click on Browse, and navigate to the folder where your file is stored. This is called Braided Card Burst. .svg. There is your file. You can add tags if you want to, or you can change the name if you want to also. Then click on Save and your file is in Design Space. Next, click on it until you see this green outline, and then go to Insert Images, and your file is now on your canvas. Now, as you can see here, there are two cards. This is the shaped card on top and the square card on the bottom. Every time you import a file in Design Space, it will be imported as a group. So the first thing we're going to do is click on that top layer that you see up here where it says group, and click on ungroup right on top. That will leave you with two different groups, the shaped card on top and the square card on the bottom. We need to change a few things for each card. So first, select the top card, the top group, and click on Ungroup, so every little piece of this card is on a separate layer. And you're going to click on the first layer, the one that says Cut right here, and I'm going to change the line type from Cut to Score. That way, this line will be scored and instead of being cut on the card. Next, we need to attach this scoring line to the underlying layer. So for that, what you need to do is, you can do this in two ways. You can click and drag a rectangle around both shapes that will select both layers. And you can also click on that top layer and hold the Shift key and click on the layer underneath, and that will select the second layer also. Now we need to attach this scoring line to that cut line, and for that we're going to click on Attach. And that way this becomes an attached group and the scoring line is attached to your cut line. Now for the square card that you see right here, is still a group, and you can drag it to the top of the list so you can see what you're doing. And what you need to do is ungroup it first and select the first layer that you see right here that has a vertical line. That is the scoring line for the square card, and we're going to change the line type on the top left corner to Score. That will turn this line into a dashed line, and then we need to attach this line to that cut line underneath. So then again, select both layers by dragging a rectangle around, click and drag a rectangle that includes both shapes, or you can select the top one and hold the Shift key and select the bottom layer, and then click on Attach. That way that becomes an attached group and your scoring lines will be attached to your cut lines. Okay, so once everything is set up, you click on Make It, and then you have the first mat with the cut lines and the score lines attached to those cut lines, and that second mat with the colored panels. For this one, you can cut this from an 8.5 by 11 inches sheet of paper, letter size paper. What you need to do is just turn this one 22.5 degrees. You can hold the Shift key and click on that rotate icon, and it will rotate in 22.5 degrees. So just rotate, and then you can save a little bit of space right there and put that shape in next to the first star, and then put this one up a little bit. And if you're very accurate with the paper positioning on your mat, you can cut this from an 8.5 by 11 inches sheet of paper. Both cards from one single sheet. And you can cut this from scraps or an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper also. Next, click on Continue, hook your machine, and cut away. Like I said before, you can cut both cards from one single letter size paper. If you position the paper accurately and you do the rearranging of the shapes within the mat, you can cut both cards from a single sheet of paper. The cardstock I'm using today is a Nina Creative Collection cardstock. It's called Crepe Texture. It comes in 4 beautiful colors and it has a beautiful texture to it. I wouldn't recommend going higher than 65-pound cardstock because it would be very hard to achieve the braided effect. Once you have all your pieces cut, start braiding the card. We will start with the square one first. The first thing you want to do is open up the slits that will hold the points of the smallest cut. Using a pointy object, you want to open up that slit, and then you can do this with tweezers or your fingers, and you're going to feed that point of the smallest triangle through that slit. You can turn the card around and with your tweezers, pull that point towards the back. Don't pull too hard. You want that nice rounded effect on that flap. Keep braiding the card and do the next flap. Make sure it gets tucked under that previous fold, and you want that round effect that you see right there. Do your next flap. Make sure make sure you bend it gently until it goes under the previous fold. Don't press it too hard. You don't want a nice sharp crease. What you want is that nice rounded effect. Fold the last one. Remember to keep that curve and feed that point and tuck it underneath that previous flap. Do not press it too hard. You don't want a fold, a sharp fold. What you want is this effect that you see right here. Curved cardstock. Keep working on the other braids around the card. First, open up those slits using a pointy object. I'm using these very fine tweezers. Open up every slit, and what you want is that kind of pocket to put that point inside. Keep working your way around the card. You will have to do this 8 times. This card is a little bit more time consuming than my last braided card. It takes a little more time to make, but the effect is really pretty also. Make sure every point is tucked underneath that previous fold, and keep working on the other braids. Always turn the card around and make sure the points are securely tucked underneath that previous fold. Once you have finished braiding the last one, make sure all the points are securely tucked underneath. We are now going to work the slits on the corners. These are created to hold the back panel, the contrasting back panel. You can also use the same cardstock if you want to. I like to give it a little bit of contrast, so I used a very bright pink for the back panel. Make sure the square back panel fits correctly on those slits before gluing it in. Do not press the card too hard. Just try to, feed it through those slits without pressing the center of the card to avoid flattening the braided pieces. Now you see the center is not is kind of lifted because of the points that are in the back, so we're going to use a little bit of liquid glue to hold it in place. So put just a little bit of glue in the center and in between the braided elements. Also add a little bit of glue to the very thin pieces of cardstock that hold the card together. Next, put your back panel without pressing the center of the card, just feeding it through those slits. And once you're done, turn the card around, make sure the piece is flat against the card, and start pushing the places where you put glue on. Start with the sides and then press the center to hold it in place. Sometimes this process makes the points to kind of get loose, so tuck them under and keep them in place. Finally, you're going to fold your card in half. Here's the score line that we created in Design Space. Fold the card in half, and there you have it. You have both sides to write on. If you want to write on the pink side of the card, make sure to do it before gluing that panel, because then it would be kind of hard to do. And I added a rhinestone in the center of the card. Rhinestones are very tricky to glue on. I always use a silicone glue and my jewel picker to make sure I place it exactly in the spot that I want to. This jewel picker has a very fine point for small objects and a large point for larger objects. When you work with rhinestones, you want to use a glue that will hold them down. I like to use silicone glue, but a good way to do this is put a bit of silicone glue on a scrap piece of paper and then dip your jewel on that silicone glue and put it on your card. This way you avoid those hairs that sometimes go flying all around. To release that rhinestone, make sure to turn that jewel picker and it will be left on the card. Now for the shaped card, we're going to do the same. First, start working on the slits using a pointy object. Work all the slits, and then you will braid the card like you did with the square card. Like before, using your tweezers, make sure all the points are securely tucked underneath that previous fold. When all the braiding is done, you will add your back panel. The gluing of this panel is a little bit different than for the square card. There are no slits that hold the corners of the back panel together. So I'm using liquid glue in the center, in between the braiding elements, and also on the points of the shaped card. Align the back panel to the front panel. Do not press too hard. Remember, there are curved elements in the front of the card, and if you push too hard, you can flatten them out. So just pressing the points of the card, align it with the back panel, then turn it around and press in the center and in between the braided elements. You can use a bone folder for this. This is to avoid the back panel from lifting from the braided elements. Pass that bone folder through the points of the card also. And then we're going to add the back of the card. So take your other piece and find that score line that you created. Fold it up. This will be the hinge of the card. You can use a bone folder to make that crease very sharp if you want to. And then find the point that you want to kind of hide. There's always a point that's more lifted than the other ones. So add glue to that tab you created. Align the front braided element. And give it a good press. It's a good idea to use a sewing clip to hold it in place while it's gluing. Then, once it's dry, take it away, and there you have it. A nice braided card with enough room to write a sentiment. Remember, if you want to write a sentiment on the back panel, do it before gluing it, because then you will have that 3D effect of the braided elements. I finally added also a rhinestone. I applied the silicone glue directly to my card, and as you can see, you have to remove the excess. So it's always a good idea to have some glue on the side and dip that rhinestone on the glue. Now a little bit about a different paper. This is Nina Creative Collection Premium Metallic paper. It's a great paper that has less of natural content, and I think it has a little bit more of a synthetic fiber. And the good thing about this is that the shimmer that you get with this paper is great, and also the braided elements kind of hold that curve beautifully. Here you can see how much easier it is to create that curved effect on the cardstock, and it holds beautifully. Now this is a prototype. It might look a little bit different than the one that we just braided, but there you see. It's a nice effect. Now if you want to flatten the cuts or the folds, you can use a bone folder to flatten the card completely. Personally, I find the 3D effect that the curved braid have better than the other one. So it's really up to you. For this silver metallic silver card, I added a black rhinestone. I really love these rhinestones. And there you have it. Now there we have 2 braided cards in pink. Here's a metallic and pink one. And here you can see the shimmer that this paper has. It's really beautiful. This is a prototype I created. As you can see, the points don't have slits to go under. I realized the points were looking kind of like an arrow, and I didn't like the effect too much, so I created those slits so those points could go under them. There you have it. New braided card called Burst. I really hoped you liked this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button next to the subscribe button to be notified every time a new video is uploaded. Thanks for watching and sticking with me until the end of this video, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.